Hello and welcome to a little bit of a different episode today. My full-time job has picked up something fierce in the past week and I am just totally snowed under. So I didn't really have time to get to the big projects that we're working on. And so unfortunately that meant that I didn't have any content for an episode. But this actually presented me with an interesting opportunity. Instead of focusing on the main projects, I have a bunch of other smaller projects that I really want to work on. But I've got so many of them. I'm sure many of you are in the exact same boat. But I have so many projects, I don't really know which one to prioritize. And I would love to bring you guys along for the ride on fixing and getting some of these projects going. So I thought I would take today's episode to give you guys a little tour of all of the projects that are sitting in my backlog, and maybe you could give me your opinion on which one of these projects you'd really like to see. So we're going to start here in this room and take a look at all of the random projects that are always sitting around me during these intros, and then we'll try and figure out which ones we like, which ones we want to prioritize. So let's hop to it. All right, so we'll start with the obvious, which is all of the projects that are sitting on the desk behind me here. And the most obvious one is going to be my TI-99 setup, which you can see here. I've got the basic system there. And then I've got the speech synthesizer, the disk controller, the RS-232 interface, the 32K memory expansion, and the solid-state printer. And then the disk drive itself is all the way over here on the left. And it's laid out like that because that was the only way I could get a system so incredibly long to fit on the shelves here. But it does work for the most part. There's a few issues in that the keyboard doesn't fit exactly right in the case here, so the 0 key can get stuck down there like you see there. So I need to pull it apart and realign the keyboard correctly. But as you can see here, it does actually work, and it'll run some programs. And I've even had Microsoft Multiplan running on this before, which pushes the machine pretty hard. It uses a lot of the expansions. Now, right above my TI machine, I've got my Nintendo Famicom here. This is with the Family Basic cart, and so I have the Family Computer keyboard that goes with it, as well as the data recorder, so you can save and load programs. And this one actually doesn't even need anything. It works so great. Now over to the right, we've got a TI Silent 700 data terminal with acoustic coupler. I don't have a power cord for this, and I've never actually powered it up. So that is a project that is waiting for me to work on it. And then if we look right here on top of the TV, we've got two very interesting little HP modules. One of these is a decade counter, and the other is a decade divider. I picked these up on eBay a while back, but I've never powered them up, so I have no idea if they work or what exactly it is they do. I do know that the decade counter has a really cool neon display on the back here, so that should be a lot of fun to power up and take a look at. Now moving over from that, we've got a whole nother big collection of things over here that need attention. Down here on the bottom, we've got a little Royal typewriter. This was actually my mother's typewriter, and it works pretty well, with the exception that I have a hard time of keeping the ribbon aligned. So if anybody knows how to keep that ribbon aligned when typing, I would love to hear about it. And then next to it is an Underwood typewriter, which I'm pretty sure is from the early 1900s. This thing needs a full restoration. It's got to come mostly apart, lots of cleaning, lots of getting it back to working order. And then right above that, we have my NEC PC 8001 with the PC 8031A disk drive unit. And so the disk drive unit is actually a US disk drive unit, which is why it has the -A on the end. But the PC 8001 itself is a Japanese unit, which has the Japanese characters on the keyboard. This is another project that I've never actually fired up because I don't have a monitor that will work with it. But it seems like a very interesting computer, and I would love to get it working someday. Then right above that is an IBM Selectric 2. This one worked for a while, and then it stopped working. And the problem is that the main drive hub broke. So you can see here that there's a lot of things slipping every time you type. And I think that's because the main drive hub has huge splits in it. And so every time you type, the drive hub isn't driving that main shaft as well as it should. But this is a very interesting typewriter, and I do have a spare drive hub and a belt for it, but quite a large amount of the typewriter has to come apart to put those in. So it's going to be a fairly involved project. Now, if we move to the other side of the room here, we have a 1924 Morkram Kleinschmidt Teletype. This has been in the family for years, and I recently did a restoration on it before I started my YouTube channel, actually. And it seems to work, but only having one teletype is difficult. I don't have anybody else to talk to. And I still need to build a current loop for it. So the interesting thing about this teletype is that the keyboard and send section are completely mechanically separated from the receive section that types. So in order to have what I type print out on the ticker tape, I have to build a current loop with a loopback function. So there's a lot of really interesting things about this teletype, and you can see that it punches out Baudot code just fine here on the oscilloscope. And then if we move back over here to the desk, you can see that we have an old Philco radio with got a nice, beautiful little turntable inside. And it is a very gorgeous looking radio. And of course it's a vacuum tube radio, so if we take a look at the inside here, we can just see some tubes hanging out in the back there. I would absolutely love to get this radio playing something someday, but we don't actually get any AM radio stations out here where I live. So we would need to potentially build an AM transmitter first, or we could just test the record functionality of it. So that's yet another project. And then if we move right on over here next to it, we have an old General TV that I picked up in Japan. This is an absolutely gorgeous television. It's an all-tube television from the 1950s, and it has these absolutely beautiful legs coming off the bottom of it. And this is a long-term goal of mine. I would love to get this TV up and running. All right, and then if we move on out here to the garage, we've got a couple more projects that we could potentially be working on. First up is another IBM Selectric, although this is a very special Selectric. This is the Selectric Composer. It can do a lot of really unique stuff. I picked it up relatively cheap at a recent trip out to a place called Computer Reset. And it looks to be in great condition, but the insides look like they're all seized up, so it needs a lot of cleaning on the inside before we even think about trying to fire it up. But this is a project that I'm actually really excited for. And then right next to that Selectric, we have another very interesting machine that I'm really excited about. This is a Monroe high-speed adding calculator, and it is in rough shape. But it's such a cool looking piece of equipment that it would be an absolute shame not to restore it. It's such a beautiful looking machine. I just love the numbers hiding behind the glass up here. All right, so that's quite a lot of projects sitting in the backlog. Again, I'm sure that I am not alone in this. But you can see that we had two Selectrics, one of which is really, really cool. We had some 8-bit machines, we've got some typewriters to work on. So there's a lot of stuff sitting in the hoppers. So I would really love to hear from you guys what you would like to see, because then maybe I can change around the priority order and we can get to one sooner than the other. So please, in the comments, let me know your feedback. Let me know which projects you want to see more of. And for now, I'm going to get back on the computer and get back to work. So thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry it was a little bit of a short episode, but we'll see you in the next one.